Welcome back. Bob and Gemma is with AIDS Accountability International. They join us here on the taxi to talk about what they're doing in this part of the country. Eugene speaks to them. Eugene.
Hi Bob, hi Gemma. I first want to find out about who are the people behind Bob and Gemma type of thing. So Bob, let's start with you.
Bob has someone behind him? Oh, sorry.
It made sense in my mind. You made sense in my mind. Bob, where are you from? How old are you? Are you single?
That's the important question.
Yeah, I'm Zambian and I'm 29. Am I single? Yes, I am.
Oh, you're single?
Yeah.
Look at that smile.
And Gemma?
Don't ask Gemma. She's only 12 and she looks like 18.
I'm Gemma. I'm from Toronto in Canada. I'm 27 last month, and I'm sorry I'm not single.
Oh, don't be sorry. In this town, ladies aren't sorry to be. Oh, happy belated birthday.
Ja.
Jy is gewaard oor die single.
You're from the AIDS Accountability International. What is the AIDS Accountability International?
Well, what AIDS Accountability International does, actually, our unique contribution as a non-governmental organization, is that we try to shape the political context in which, and by that, to determine the level and quality that leaders respond to health commitments, as well as implementation of health policies.
You're right. So we're called AIDS Accountability, but our work is broader than that. We look at lots of issues across the health sector in South Africa, including access to safe abortion, safe motherhood, that kind of thing as well. And when we talk about political commitments, really what we mean is government keeping promises.
Okay. So you hold
you'll
them
be busy.
accountable.
You'll be busy.
Right. And so I like what earlier in the show, we heard you guys talking about something similar, accountability in the education sector.
Yeah.
And whether or not you think government is being accountable to the right people. And I thought maybe we could start by talking about what accountability is.
Yeah.
Oh, by all means, interview yourself.
I want to interview you guys. I just thought maybe that's a good place to start before we start talking
By all
about...
means, speak your mind.
Why don't you start, Bob? What's accountability to you?
Well, I hate being put on the spot, but anyways, accountability in essence is the ability of governments to meet through implementation what they said they would commit to. And for example, we have tons of commitment around the globe, as well as in South African commitments that they will provide basic education, as an example that we gave earlier on through the provision of books, teachers, and etc. But in the context of health, we look at accountability and ensuring that leaders provide implementation plans, they provide finance and resources, ensure that they're doctors when people need to meet, their health needs anyways.
Do you find that government has been following through with all the promises that they have been making from a South African point of view?
Well, I think that's a very good question, and I say so. This is what brought AIDS accountability to the picture, or on the playing field. During the 2005 World AIDS Conference that was held in Durban, South Africa, the founder of AIDS Accountability International was sitting in the audience, and one of the persons presenting was making a presentation at the conference, and Thabo Mbeki walked out. And the question that was raised was, should a leader really walk out when we are discussing things that pertain to the health of people and the people of South Africa, including globally? So that's why we started doing what we do.
What was the context for Mbeki walking out?
Do you want to keep that?
I think it was more in the 2004 AIDS conference, there was a lot of...
You remember, he was still our president then.
Exactly. So, and there was a lot of controversy around his perspectives towards HIV and his acceptance around what it was and where it came from. And there was a lot of pressure during this conference to hear him say something more positive, to hear him give his address and say, you know what, I was wrong. I'm going to embrace these scientific facts and help the people of my country who need it. And that didn't happen. And he completely skirted that issue and gave his old-fashioned perspectives, and there was huge international outcry.
But isn't that based on the reality that for a lot of people, the whole idea around addressing HIV and AIDS, and I know that the TIC took big issue with this, that if the international community is that keen to help African, especially third world countries, and addressing the issue of AIDS, why aren't they making the generic production of medication possible for third world countries? I mean, doesn't it become, it was just really weird that around Mbeki's time, suddenly Mbeki was an issue and not actually attitudes, not only in Africa, but in the rest of the global community around addressing.
Yeah, he was just voicing an opinion that is
became
out there.
Suddenly he became like he was the problem. We literally had people saying, writing graffiti on walls saying, Thabo Mbeki, I am dying of AIDS. You know, the reality is Thabo Mbeki didn't give anyone AIDS. Not in my opinion.
If I do want to add to that though, because at that time and prior to that in the country, they weren't allowing antiretrovirals to being brought into the country. So the issue also there was that we need to bring this into the country because there are people dying and they need this medicine. And I remember the TSC and Medicine Sans Frontier around that time smuggled the antiretrovirals into South Africa.
But they started the whole in mother-to-mother
but initially they actually smuggled it in.
Government.
Exactly, because they felt that they needed to take a strong stand and just bring it in.
No, I think that's absolutely the reason why there was that outrage. It wasn't a personal opinion, but it was a policy position that was causing mass deaths across the country, which did not have to happen. And everybody knew that, and I think that was the frustration with that leadership.
Well, it was also in isolation, but that was also an argument in isolation, because Thabo Mbeki had said at the beginning of the century that it was enough that Africa and countries, third world countries like South Africa and developing countries, were constantly being subject to hand in hand, standing, going to the big drug companies, having to put themselves in debt to access that kind of thing. And that has still not been answered by any of those big organizations.
Well, I think we do have progress towards African production of generic drugs recently, which there is a generic manufacturer in South Africa, and we're also seeing it in East Africa, in Uganda, in Tanzania, I know as well. So there is progress towards...
but is that for diseases like malaria, which, I mean, the vaccines are outdated by over 30 years, those kind of those kind of diseases that are a real issue here in Africa?
Well, I think there has been great progress around access to treatment on the continent, which of course is also another debate that would take us a long time to talk about. But speaking to leadership within the context of the continent and the responses to the commitments that they have made to HIV as way of example, but we have also broadened the scope of issues that we deal with to look at also other sexual and reproductive health needs and rights. This includes needs of marginalized populations. For example, people that are gay, lesbian, or transgender, issues like that haven't been dealt with in many other countries as well as South Africa. Sometimes you find access to commodities, access to treatment, access to products and health services that are required. Other marginalized populations include women as well. Sometimes women just have difficulties in accessing commodities that are important for them.
We have that even with disability. I mean, we have a great constitution, we have great legislation, but in the actual living of the stuff, it is a nightmare for people.
But do you think, in your opinion, working with the organization and traveling over Africa, do you think there's still a large number of people that need to be educated in understanding what the true meaning of HIV and AIDS is, and how is that being dealt with?
I think that there is definitely an understanding of the disease and how to prevent, how to protect yourself, how to protect others. I think that is there. What isn't there and what we focus on mostly is this marginalized population knowledge. So knowledge about which parts of your population may be more vulnerable and may need different services or different strategies that help them to access the things they need, whether it's for prevention or treatment or anti-stigma. So that
there's no denying that for our country especially, that is a huge, that sort of discrepancy between what happens in the cities and what happens in the rural communities is a very, very real issue.
And I think what's interesting too about South Africa is we work in the region, in the Southern African region. And South Africa is the only country where you have safe abortion legalized and where you have gender identities and sexual orientation freedom. And yet, South Africa is sometimes one of the most difficult contexts to work in around those things. Which is
talk to me about this, because there is a kind of arrived, kind of international standard and international thinking around things, especially issues like safe abortion. For a lot of, in the international community and certainly in the thinking circles, that it's kind of accepted. Why are we even debating that? But when you come into areas like our country, you have strong resistance. You have people who have, you know, you start the conversation with them, they're ready to bury you. How do you guys deal with that?
Well, I think one of our entry points is to try and highlight the key reason why we deal with this issue. It's a public health concern. And by public health concern, I mean you're looking at the health of the individual that is seeking a termination of pregnancy or an abortion versus a moral concern where you're thinking about, well, is it right traditionally, is it right from a religion standard point of view. We're looking at the life and the life that needs to be served versus the moral aspect. And I think once people understand that it is important to take issues from a public health point of view versus a moral lens, we could probably change things.
It makes good sense for me in that context, but it's something that is less kind of, say, circumcision. You know, in our country we have a right to belief, but you now have Xhosa youngsters saying, I don't want to be circumcised, I don't want to go into the bush, and I don't want to do all that kind of stuff. And then we have issues of youngsters being kidnapped and taken and forcibly circumcised. Like, where does your sympathy lie in that as an organization?
I think the choice is always with the individual, but I think our objective is to educate around what your rights are and what your governments have promised you.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
the
you
key
can
thing,
make the decision for yourself based on that knowledge.
So you're not here to debate whether things are right or wrong. It's what the government says it's going to do, what's legal around it, and then whether you have access to that.
Yeah, knowing what you are entitled to from your government's promises and then making that personal decision, whatever it is we're talking about, separately for yourself with that knowledge.
We like that.
Could you tell me, could you tell me about your success stories that the AIDS Accountability International has been having in South Africa?
That'd be a good idea. South Africa.
Oh, don't think that long.
Yeah, this is the one time at band camp.
Well, there are a couple of success stories, and one success story is that we have our strategy is usually to use research or advocacy as a tool to reaching our target audience, which would be government and other stakeholders such as civil society. But our success story through research is the creation of what we call scorecards and showing progress that is being made to certain commitments. And by being able to show that progress to governments or other stakeholders, we're actually providing a platform for government to sit down, oh, this is where we are, this is where we need to
Measurables.
go. Measurables, for further implementation, for progress to these indicators.
What excites me really is the fact that you're young people doing this, because there's a sense amongst young people, and I don't know how it is in Botswana or in Canada, there's a sense amongst young people that I actually am not going to engage with all of this because it's wasted, it's gone, it's the government.
I just want to party.
Yeah, I'd rather not even. And so how do young people get involved with AAI? If somebody's listening now and going, yo, that's nice, I want to hold government accountable for our school looking like this. How do they access you guys?
Well, we have loads of social media platforms. I think that is a nice entry point for everyone to begin familiarizing themselves. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we have a website. So there's lots of LinkedIn discussion groups. There's lots of places to take part in the debate and start to understand these issues.
Would all those be under AAI? I mean,
AIDS Accountability International, you'll find us,
on Twitter and on Facebook, those are the...
So get involved, it's definitely an exciting debate.
But what does it require from a young person? Do you know what I mean? If I'm not sitting here thinking in my house, oh, that's cool, I wanna activate, what is it, what would be the steps?
I think just in addition to that, I think as a young person, as a people out there must realize that when we hold governments accountable, it is not the role of only civil society, but even as an individual. And we have avenues which provide this platform for us to voice ourselves. This could be political voting. You know, when you vote, you're actually showing that I do not support this policy and I support you because I think you're going to do this for me. So it's also important for young people to engage in those opportunities that are provided through either elections or peaceful demonstraration or opinion polls or peer reviews and stuff like that, that provide a platform for us to speak out as young people. I mean, this is a platform. I'm sure more young people can come and say, voice out. Like you are young people voicing out about the government.
They're not that young. It's makeup.
Yes.
It's makeup.
Yes.
We are young.
Yes, a question, Ron.
Okay, just a quick question. You're speaking about youngsters and how they can get involved. Is your organization like running any programs at schools? Getting them involved as well?
Most of our work is not at community level. It's
Okay.
more at government level and African Union level.
Okay.
So
So you're not really looking for organizations, you're looking for individuals to come and become empowered, say, here is an issue, how do I address it,
Yeah.
or here, how do I make this?
but we're
take
all
this to
part
effect?
of the same chain.
Yeah.
I mean, just because we're talking to a leader in Ethiopia does not mean that the voice of someone in Cape Town and their
Yeah.
concerns can't be heard there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hope that people can see AAI as a platform for that as well.
I'm getting this sort of, okay, let me tell you what I'm getting. I'm getting sort of that Arab Spring feeling, you know? The youngsters in the square, all just going, enough, and something needs to change, and we need to do something about it. So my question is this kind of body that is a space for youngsters to feel like, this is how I articulate my voice, this is what I can address, this is what I can do, is this that kind of platform?
I think definitely. I think accountability is not always something you ask politely for.
Yeah.
So I think if there is something that you're feeling you are not getting from your government and you feel you are owed and is deserved, then shout.
Check it out. They are,
Sally, on the same vein.
Did I not sound like I was closing?
Quick question. On that same vein, if you're an individual and you're having a problem accessing a service that you know you're entitled to, could that individual approach AAI and ask for assistance? Whether it be health or any other service that you know you're entitled to.
And I don't think what she means is like taking on the
No,
system. I think what
Just
she means is
like
like, what would I
assistance,
do?
whatever
And you'd be able
avenues.
to guide them into
Exactly.
I think the avenues where you could empower yourself to know where to go as a referral point, and could be like seeing a lawyer would, So I think we could probably just give you a referral
Advice.
point
Yeah.
to
Point
where.
in the right
Okay.
direction.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think those kinds of perspectives are also really important for our work. And one of the projects I'm working on right now is very much about people's voices.
Okay.
And it's quotes from over 100 people about what they're not getting and what they're wanting. And so if there is someone who has that drive and that problem, our research and our distribution channels would love to include those perspectives.
Great.
So
It's easy to get hold of them. They are AIDS Accountability International on Facebook, also on Twitter, AAI.
Just Google them.
Google them.
Google
But
them.
young people, this is your opportunity. You know that you're on mobile phones, you're on the social networks. Go and check it out. Just check it out for yourself, because that's constantly the complaint that you old farts, meaning people like myself and older, we don't get what young people are about. Well, here's an opportunity for you to find out how you articulate that voice and how you make your voice heard. Thanks very much, Bob and Gemma. Much appreciated. When we
Thank
come
you.
back, Marcelino, Jerome, and Ricardo is in the house.
Okay.
Squire.
I'm a young people. Are we?
Yeah.
You are a
Check.
young.
Blank check. Are we? Ay, jy kan sy scream 17 times and must go to a break.
No,
Can-
but they can hear us the inside. They
Okay, well, continue. Bob and Gemma, and while we've still got the camera.
They still haven't cut. Why? What's going on?